Good morning, everyone. I'm Rudra Upadhyay. Today, we have presentation on the paper, The History of English Literature. So, in this paper, I have choose the topic, the development of poetry in the Renaissance. So, let's begin. Here are my personal and academic information. These are the point which I'm going to discuss today in this presentation. Now, the Renaissance. In England, during the 16th century, it was marked a new birth of letters and a flourishing of literary expression. Especially poetry emerged as a chief form of literature during the period of Renaissance in England and embodying the spirit of the age. Renaissance poetry reflects the ideals of humanism. Now, what is the humanism? So, in medieval era, there was a human being were treated as an animal, and they had no any kind of respect. So, by the birth of Renaissance, human being gave a dignity of being of human, and they became the center of dignity. So it was developed during the Renaissance, and the influence of classical learning and the development of new poetic forms, all of which contributed to the richness and vitality of English literature in the era of Renaissance. So let's begin with our early poets in English Renaissance. Those were the Sir Thomas Yat and Henry Howard. So Sir Thomas Yat was an English diplomat in the court of Henry VIII. He introduces the sonnet into English from the tradition of Petrarch. So the part of sonnet which were written in 14 lines and divided into two parts, octave and sextet, it was there in Italian literature. But from Italians, Sir Yat was developed it in English language. His verse is rough and experimental because he was obviously a early writer of sonnet. Then we have Henry Howard, Earl of Surrey. He refined the sonnet form and gave it the Shakespearean structure, like the three quatrain and the last two line are the couplet. He introduced blank verse, which were after used by Elizabethan dramatists and university wits to written with using iambic pentameter and without using rhyme scheme. So together, Sir Yat and Surrey are called the pioneers of Renaissance poetry in England. Now, my favorite poet, Spenser, Edmund Spenser, and his contribution. He was called Poet's Poet by Charles Lamb. Some of his works are The Fairy Queen, which is basically an epic, but it was not completed. Uh, uh, Spencer uh, Spencer decided to wrote in 24 books, but in epic manner. But he only completed 6 books of The Fairy Queen. Then his other works are Prothalamion, which is based on a pre-wedding song, and the main characters are the Elizabeth and Catherine Somerset, which two brides are going to marry. Then the Epithalamion, it is a sequence of the Amority. Now the Amority is a sonnet work written in 89 sonnet by the describing the relationship of Edmund Spenser himself and his lover Elizabeth Boyle. And the Epithalamion is a sequence and the wedding song of the ending a relationship of Spencer and his beloved. Then the Mother Hubbard's Tale. It is also a very rural story which is based on an ape and fox are the disguised in the form of beggar and exploit a farmer. Then also one of his major work are the Shepherd's Calendar, which I have forgot to mention here. It is also based on Virgil's Eclogues. Then Spenserian stanzas, he introduces himself and also adopted a different rhyme scheme from the sonnet writers like A B, BC, BCC. Then Spenser's poetry blends medieval romances with Renaissance spirit, and also he described the lofty idealism in his work. Now, the other Elizabethan sonneters. Sir Philip Sidney was also an English courtman. He wrote one of the famous sonnet sequence of 103 sonnets. The name is the sonnet collection is Astrophel and Stella, which is basically means a star lover. It was the first greatest English sonnet sequence, which explores the themes of love, passion, and personal feeling. Then our William Shakespeare, he wrote 154 sonnets. In this collection, the sonnet number 1 to 126 are described, dedicated to a young aristocratic boy. So it's called the Fairy Youth Sonnet. Then sonnet 127 to 152 are described as a dark lady sonnet. And last two sonnets are called as Greek sonnets. Shakespeare's sonnet are describe the themes of love, beauty, time, and mutability. And we have also some other sonnet writers are Daniel Michael Drayton, Constable Thomas Lodge, etc. Then we have some features of Renaissance poetry. Now, these 5 features, the all Renaissance poetry explores, which are humanism, which I have already talked. Then the classical influence of Greek mythology, Roman mythology, and the references of Italian literature. Then the new forms developed during this time, like sonnet, Spenserian stanzas, and blank verse. Then the spirits of nationalism, because obviously the golden age of the ruling reign of Queen Elizabeth I and her greatness. So English became the center of nationalism. Then the allegory and idealism, especially in Spenser's work, showing the moral and political ideals. Now, let's conclude this presentation by saying this, that the Renaissance transferred English poetry, evaluating its form from the rough medieval forms to a more refined and artistic expression. Sir Yatt and Henry Howard are the 2 pioneers of the sonnets in English. Then the poetry of this period beautifully reflects the spirit of the Renaissance, marked by a deep love of beauty and learning, imagination, and the celebration of human dignity. So this is my learning outcome, that what I have learned from by studying the Renaissance poetry, that it was reflect the cultural, intellectual, and artistic values of Renaissance poetry and the human spirit. These 2 are my references, which I have taken from for this presentation. Okay. Now, anyone would like to ask questions, so they are free to ask.
My question is that would you like to say something the work songs and sonnets by Sir Thomas White?
Yes, of course. Thank you for the question. Songs and Sonnets. It is a work by Sir Thomas Yatt and Henry Howard together, which are published in Richard Total's publication. So that's why it called Total's Miscellany. Also, it was published in 1557 and mention the 271 poems in this collection. Now, any other question?
So, according to you, Rudra, which Renaissance poet contribute his best in developing poetry in the Renaissance?
Here, I would like to be biased because Spenser is my one of favorite poet, and he wrote so many kind of different kind of genre in poetry itself. So Spenser, I think it is the most contributed poet who contribute in Renaissance poetry. Thank you. This is from my side.